Hello and welcome back to the CQC tutorial series. We are going to look at, in this video, triggered events. There are actually two types of events. There are scheduled events and triggered events. We'll look at scheduled events in a separate video. Both of them are handled by the same server, which is called the event server. It's one of the optional servers that you can install when you're setting up the CQC master server machine. You don't necessarily have to use it. Some people might have quite extensive and powerful automation solutions that make no use of it, but most people would, and so you'll probably install it. What it does is basically sit in the background and watch for either particular times to arrive, at which point it will invoke certain scheduled events that you've set up to run at a particular time, or it can watch for changes in device fields, and it can do something in response to those devices, and those are the triggered events because they are triggered by changes in device fields. So for triggered events, there are two parts to the setup. One is that you have to configure triggers on the fields that you want to trigger events on, and you do that through the field browser, which we have seen before. So let's bring that up, and we're just going to use the device simulator. What we're going to do is trigger on motion. The device simulator down here at the bottom provides a couple of motion detector simulation fields, and you can set them true, and they'll stay true for a few seconds and go back off. And so they're just ways to simulate somebody moving in the room. So if we go down to bedroom motion, we'll use that one. And once you select a field, you can use the trigger button down here, and it brings up a dialog that allows you to configure a trigger on this field. So we will say you can either send, don't send any triggers, which effectively disables triggers on this field, which is the default. You can send out an event trigger anytime that the field changes, no matter what the new value is. Or you can send out an event trigger if a particular expression is met by the new value. In other words, it transitions to a new value, and that value is evaluated as true. And we're going to do this one here. So we'll, in this case, we'll say is true. There's also a comparison field down here, but for the is true, we don't need that because it's just going to compare the new value to true or false, and if it's true, it will trigger. So if we save that, now you see this little mail envelope here, meaning it's going to send out a notification, an event trigger is what it would be called, when this field changes to true. It won't do anything when the field changes from true back to false, only when it changes from false to true. So we can close that. And now if we use this button here with the little document in the clock, that brings up the configuration for the event server. The event server has, as we mentioned before, scheduled and triggered events, and there is a separate tab for either of those. We're just going to look at the triggered events today. And you can add a new triggered event by pressing the Add New. And what this first brings up is a dialog that lets you set filters. You don't want every event that you've set up to be triggered every time any field changes. So you want to use these filters to only have as much as possible the action to be triggered by just those things that you care about. In some cases, what you want to trigger on is a little too complex to fully do here, so you may still have to do a little bit of checking once you get into your action. But for the most part, you can usually deal with it here. So in our case, we want to say is field change for, and what that allows us to do is to select a field that we can insert here, and it will see if this field has changed, then run this action. And since we only have one trigger that only triggers for the particular value that we care about, that's good enough for our purposes. All of those filter types are documented in the event server technical document, so you can look there for that information. So find the field that you want, and then we did it for bedroom motion, and select that. So what's going to happen now is if a field change comes in and it's for this field, then this action will get invoked. We have to give it a title, and we'll call it movement in bedroom. And then we can edit the action. And this is just like any actions that we've seen before. In this case, the only event is on trigger. So once the action is triggered, you have this one event here that will be invoked. So what we can do is we'll just turn on the lights in the bedroom. So anytime motion is sensed, the lights will come on. It's something that in reality you might not want to do. It could possibly get annoying, but just for our purposes here, it will work. So we will do the bedroom lighting zone state. We'll set it to true. and then we'll bring up well, that's good enough. It'll work for our purposes. So if we save that, and now it's in there, and if we go over here and turn off the bedroom zone, so now the lights are off. If we were to go back to the field browser, just for a quickie way to test this, and set bedroom motion, see it came on, and also you see that the bedroom zone came back on. So the event server ran that action for us and flipped on the lights when there was motion in the bedroom. Actually, we could go back in here and edit that one. Just highlight the one that you want to change and press the change button. And we can say log invocations. And so let's do that again. We'll turn off the lights in the bedroom, and we'll use the field browser to trigger motion once more. And you see it turned it back on again. And now if we go to the log server and query the logs, you should see somewhere down towards the end there, it logged that that triggered event was started, and whether it stopped successfully or with an error. In this case, it stopped successfully. So you can optionally log them for ones that happen fairly often, and you don't really worry about any sort of after the fact debugging. It's best not to log it because it's just going to eat up log space and push out stuff that's more important. But you can do that, and it's useful for kind of figuring out what went wrong after the fact. I'm going to turn that logging back off again here. Oh, I should also have pointed out earlier that each of these triggers is run in sequence, and you can combine them with one of these, what you call Boolean schemes. Either they all have to be true, one or more of them has to be true, or only one is true. And if you have more than one of them, you can combine them in intelligent ways to only trigger if they are true or false according to one of these rules here. Generally, you just say they're all true, and that's the most common one, but those others can be quite useful in some cases. You can also pause and resume events so that you can turn them off temporarily if you need to. And this can also be done through an action command, so you can have a user interface somewhere that you can use to enable and disable these things as well if you want to. So when it's enabled, there's a checkbox by it, and when it's paused, there's a next by it. And that's it. That's a very quick overview, but that's basically how triggered events work, and I'm sure you can find lots of ways to make use of them. And we'll see you in the next video.